Well, they're torturing people in Alligator Alcatraz now. According to the Miami Herald, Castillo was in Alligator Alcatraz when he was handcuffed and left outside where he was swarmed by mosquitoes in the sweltering Florida sun for nearly 3 hours. This was a punishment because Castillo attempted a hunger strike while in Alligator Alcatraz. Another man named Cueto was beaten after trying to explain that he needed more time to eat due to one of his lungs working at 10% capacity since birth. The language barrier between the English-speaking guards and the Spanish-speaking Cueto caused his request to be interpreted as insubordination, and then he was struck in the ribs several times by a baton-like tool. And before you say that it's not torture, the United Nations Convention Against Torture, Article 1 states the following. Torture means any act with severe pain or suffering, physical or mental, intentionally inflicted on a person for punishing him for an act he or a third person committed. And examples of torture that the U.S. has previously condemned include beatings and exposure to excessive heat and cold. But
de la prisión, no están tratando como si estuvieran los presos, no están tratando como si ellos los tenemos que poner las manos en la nuca, como si estuvieran en El Salvador. Nos están tratando, ahí vienen, nos quitan la ropa, no le dan tiempo a uno a comer, le dan 3 minutos. Los oficiales te hablan como si uno estuviera preso, te faltan el respeto, tratando que uno le responda para atrás, para tomar acciones violentas contra uno. Y también...
Boy. So we got to talk about the illegal immigrants who are now lashing out to outlets like CNN, claiming that they're being tortured in Alligator Alcatraz. Now, we have to react to this because, first and foremost, they're not being tortured, right? And also on top of that, I just find it to be fascinating how there's so much concern about the treatment of these illegal immigrants, right? And the conditions that they're living in. But yet these same media outlets, these Democrats, these liberals are not concerned about conditions that you could probably argue are worse in some parts of the country, right? In some of our prison systems, in some ghettos, some hoods, okay? Some of these inner liberal cities across the country, right? Like, for example, AOC's district and stuff like that. You know, some of the conditions that the American people are living in are worse than what these illegals are experiencing. But yet, there's so much concern about these illegals not getting a king-size bed, a nice pool, a feast, video games, you know, all the amenities that the illegals were getting when Democrats were in charge, right? When they were putting illegals in 4- and 5-star hotels, okay? While Americans sleep on the streets, right? Yeah, that's what they're boohoo whining and crying about, right? They're boohoo whining and crying that the illegals are not getting 5-star hotel treatment.
This was never intended to be something where people are just held and we just kind of twiddle our thumbs. The whole purpose is to make this be a place that can facilitate increased frequency and numbers of deportations of illegal aliens. And that is the goal. And one of the reasons why this was a sensible spot is because you have this runway that's right here. You don't have to drive them an hour to an airport. You go a couple thousand feet and they can be on a plane and out of here. So
it's a detention center. It's not the Four Seasons. It's not the Ritz-Carlton. These are criminal aliens who have been caught by DHS, ICE, and are sent there on final deportation orders. This is not meant to be, you know, a weekend in paradise. So, and let us not forget, you know, it has to resemble a jail cell. So these are the same type of facilities that were built under the Obama administration. This is what it is. So this is all performative. They're just trying to rile up their base for the purposes of probably getting them excited for the midterm elections or probably to fundraise off of it. I'm sorry to say, but that's basically what it is.
So without further ado, let's get into this.
But the facility is in the middle of the Florida Everglades, surrounded by dangerous wildlife, and it has turned into a punchline for immigration hardliners. And tonight, OutFront is going to take you inside the detention center. Detainees speaking out and telling us it's a type of torture inside. Well, Priscilla Alvarez has done this incredible investigation, and here she is now out front.
This is sad, hopeless. It's a type of torture. These are the stories of migrants held at Alligator Alcatraz, a new detention facility deep in the Florida Everglades. Using a plan of the site shown during President Trump's visit and photos from media tours and social media, CNN created a 3D model to take you inside the site, where hundreds of immigrant detainees are being held. Here are the giant tents where people report being crammed into cells made of chain link fence, packed with bunk beds. CNN spoke with 8 detainees to hear firsthand accounts of what conditions are like on the inside. Some asked not to be named for fear of retribution.
Because of the way that we have been treated, it has been a very terrible experience.
Gonzalo Almanza Valdez was detained by ICE when he showed up for a meeting with his probation officer.
It's 32 people per cell, or per cage, really, because this is a cage. It's a metal cage strapped in with zip ties.
3 open toilets are shared by dozens of men who say there's no running water or sewage system. Roger Moreno, who has lived in the U.S. for more than 30 years, told CNN the rain makes it worse.
The toilets, when it rains, they overflow, and the cells we're in fill up with sewage.
Every time it does rain and storm, the toilets clog up.
Detainees told CNN the lights are kept on 24 hours a day.
We can't sleep. I have to personally put a rag on top of my head to at least try to take a nap because the lights are so bright. There's 24 LED lights in the roof, and it's like shining bright.
Juan Palma Martinez has lived in the U.S. for more than 20 years and was also picked up by ICE at a routine meeting with his probation officer.
I no longer know when it's daytime or when it's nighttime. I don't sleep. It's affecting me mentally and physically.
The tents aren't sealed. You can see cracks in this image. And at the height of the hot Florida summer, that means the insects are relentless.
Yeah, so something ain't making sense here, right? Something ain't adding up. Okay, the illegals are saying, well, I can't tell whether it's day or night. I can't sleep. But yet, see it in the next sentence, it talks about how there's cracks in the tents, which clearly indicate that you can tell whether or not it's day or night, right? So again, something ain't adding up here, okay? Furthermore, on top of that, they have said nothing that to me indicates that they're being tortured. The fact that they're letting these illegals talk to CNN tells you everything you need to know, right? Which is that they're not being treated that badly. Because if they're being treated that badly, I'm not sure they would even let the illegals talk to CNN or anybody in order to talk about how badly they're being treated. Because they're not really being treated that badly. In fact, I would go as far as to say their current living conditions in Alligator Alcatraz are probably much better than the living conditions that they're in their home countries, right? So again, I'm trying to figure out exactly where is the torture. I haven't heard anything about torture. Having bad sewage is not torture, right? That's not torture. Having the lights on 24/7, that's not torture, right? Having to use the restroom next to other men, that's not torture. I haven't heard anything to me that would signal that these illegals are being tortured. If anything, I mean, hey, these sound like standard kind of prison conditions, to be honest with you. So again, I'm trying to figure out exactly how is it that they're being treated so badly. But again, the point, okay, and this is probably why they're being allowed to talk to the media in the first place and to do this stuff, is it's a deterrent, right? If you're here illegally, if you don't want to end up in Alligator Alcatraz, right? If you don't want to end up in this concentration camp, right? If you don't want to be tortured, okay, even though this is not torture, but if you don't, and it's not a concentration camp either, but if you don't want to end up here, then you might want to self-deport, right? You might want to go ahead and leave, okay? And this is why I think that people are not giving the Trump administration enough credit for the amount of people who have probably left the country already, right? When you talk about the mass deportations, it's not just about the reported numbers from ICE or the Department of Homeland Security or whatever. You also got to understand there are a lot of people who are leaving because they don't want to end up like this. They're saying, no, I would rather go back to my home country than to end up like this. And that's the whole point. That is the point. And for people who don't understand it, I don't know what to tell you, right? I don't know exactly what conditions you think that the illegals should be in. They came into the country illegally, but certainly I can tell you that 5-star hotels are not acceptable, because putting illegals in 5-star hotels, that's part of the reason why a lot of them kept coming to the border under Biden administration, because they knew that, okay, if I get here, I might get a 5-star hotel, right, on government dime, okay? I'm going to be able to eat a hot meal. I'm going to be able to eat whatever I want, right? You guys remember that story where they were feeding the illegals meals from some caterer, right, some contractor, and the illegals said, no, I don't want to eat that, right? I want the same type of food I would eat in my home country. And the Democrats capitulated. They capitulated because they're like, well, we don't want to waste food. And I'm like, well, if you come over here and you're claiming that you're seeking asylum and that you're starving, right, you're in dire conditions, who are you to reject food? Again, you have the illegals. They so bourgeoisie, right? They're so bougie that they're rejecting food. They're rejecting food, like free food. But, oh, we should allow them into the country because they're here due to seeking asylum. They're escaping dire situations. If that's the case, you shouldn't be rejecting any food, right? Any food that is given to you, you should be happy to eat it. You should just be happy that you got food in general, right? But that's not the case with a lot of these people. It's not the case. So when people say, well, how can you be okay with this? How can you morally be okay with this? Well, because there's nothing immoral going on here. And I don't have the worldview of a child, right? Because I can make the moral argument that it is not moral to let people into the country to take resources from American citizens who need those resources, and also people who commit crimes, including rape, murder, traffic drugs, things of that nature. I can make moral arguments that is not something that we should be allowing, right? So if you want to make it about morality, great, but liberals do not have a moral high ground on this, okay? From my perspective, I think that the moral thing to do is to enforce the laws of the country and to make sure anybody coming into the country should be fully vetted, and they should come in legally to reduce the harm that is done to Americans, right? To take care of your own people first, right? I think that is the moral stance here, okay? So again, these liberals, their tears, the tears of the illegals in these cages, it's not going to affect me. It does not affect me, okay? Because again, I don't have a childlike view of the world.
Yesterday, the air conditioning went out. We had the whole morning without air conditioning. Lots of mosquitoes came in because they get in from all sides.
Multiple detainees say they don't get enough food, though they're served 3 meals a day, and that water is limited.
Scan our bracelets, we go into the food hall. The food is very terrible here. Very, very, very small portions. People are having a hard time living here because like they're starving. Probably like a quarter cup of rice.
A quarter cup of rice. A quarter cup of rice. Oh, I'm starving. No, they're getting sandwiches, they're getting fruits, they're getting nice meals, okay? They're getting more food than they probably get in their home countries, right? The countries that they're from. Again, that's the crazy part about it. You should be happy that you're not eating gruel, right? You're not eating oatmeal every meal, right? Again, these people, man, it's just so funny to me. So again, some sap, right, will listen to this, some liberal, okay, some low testosterone man or woman will listen to this and think, oh, God, this is so terrible. How can you treat these people like this? And it's like, bruh, you really got to understand that this treatment right here that they're getting is probably pretty damn good compared to a vast majority of places in the world. Let's keep it 100.
We've eaten as late as 10 at night. The food at night is cold, too. There's never a hot meal.
Showers are located in a separate tent, and opportunities to shower there are scarce, according to the detainees we spoke with.
All the showers are connected to the same water source. There's barely any water pressure. So we have to like literally put ourselves on the wall right next to the water drainage so we can at least get hit with water.
They follow you when you're walking to the shower with your hands on your head, as if you were a prisoner. The water is very hot. Very hot.
Oh, wow. Hot shower. So terrible, right? A hot shower. Again, a hot shower. That is a luxury in a lot of these foreign countries. I can tell you that for a fact, okay? I can tell you that for an absolute fact. A hot shower, wow, right? You got it way better, okay, than you have it in the countries that a lot of these people are from, okay? I'm just saying that is not something I would say is a form of torture, having a hot shower. They have a hot shower. A hot shower. Wow. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. Terrible treatment.
They don't give you enough time. Mosquitoes are biting you in the shower. There are more mosquitoes than water.
The only line to the outside world are phones set up in the cells.
Nobody here has been able to see a loved one. Nobody has been able to see a lawyer here. Nobody has. It sucks. It sucks. There's no physical contact with the outside world other than these phone calls. It's not really more about me. It's about not being able to see my son. He's 6. He's about to turn 7 in November. And I don't even know if I'm going to be able to see him for his birthday.
Republican and Democratic lawmakers recently toured the facility. According to one of them, they were not permitted to speak to the detainees. Then State Senator Blaise Ingoglia, a Republican, said the facility is in good order.
It's actually a very well-run facility. The idea that the detainees are in there and they're in squalid conditions is just not accurate.
But most distressing for detainees, they say, was that in multiple cases, they haven't appeared in any state or federal detention system since they were arrested. That means families have been unable to track them.
We're in the middle of the Everglades with constant reminder that we're locked up in a cage and anything can happen. A hurricane could hit us and we can all die and nobody would know.
Yeah. So you see that you're in that. Again, me personally, I didn't hear anything that sounded like torture to me, right? It sounded like, hey, you're in a detention center. The detention center is certainly not a 5-star hotel, but it ain't, again, it's not a Nazi Germany concentration camp. Like, it's certainly not that. Okay, it's probably somewhere in the middle of a Nazi Germany concentration camp and a 5-star hotel. Okay, somewhere in the middle of that. And, it's just really, really, really fascinating to see this propaganda, because that's what this is. This is straight propaganda. There's two sides to every story. It's funny how the liberal media is only telling one side. Okay, I mean, they did show the Republican saying that, hey, these illegals aren't really living in terrible conditions, which, again, listening to the illegals themselves, I'm sure they're exaggerating because they don't want to be in there, right? So their incentive is to get on the phone and to say the worst, right? Oh, God, hot water, terrible. Oh, God, a cup of rice. Oh, we're starving. Okay, like they're incentivized to say the worst of the worst, to exaggerate because they don't want to be there, right? So the truth is probably that they're not being treated that bad. And ultimately, at the end of the day, they're in the country illegally. And because they're in the country illegally, this is the consequence. And if you don't want to experience this, right, if you don't want to be detained at Alligator Alcatraz, then you should self-deport, right? And don't come into the country illegally. It's really that simple. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.